Hi, my name is Alejandra Rubio.
And I'm Sarai Montes, and we are the 2023 to 2024 MCCLA Art Apprentices.
We chose to title our show Chismosas because we are looking to redefine what that word means. Chisme or chismosas often has a negative connotation, using the word chismosa usually as a derogatory term for women who are engaging in gossip. But we see gossip and the concept of chisme as something that is actually very politically powerful. From our own experiences, we have had a lot of conversations, usually very political conversations about ideas that are on these walls. And you know, I feel like from a different perspective, if you see us just kind of talking, it can look like we're chismeando, but we're really having these very important conversations that often takes place in these women-led spaces.
And that's one of the reasons why we decided to focus on the domestic space, and we decided to go with an installation versus just hanging up the work on the wall, because we feel like the installation really contextualizes the work and it emphasizes the importance of domestic spaces in association with chisme. So here we are currently sitting in our living room, and then you can see our dining room is in the back.
I printed the tablecloth with photos of my family. It's in 3 parts, so it's photos of like my mom and like her relationship to her home, and then photos of me and my relationship to home as someone who has moved to many places. And then on there's also a combination of photos from mine and my mom's experiences of like living together. And it also has like the flower from my grandmother's tree, which is also a piece that I have here in the show. And that tree and those flowers are very like important to me, because when I went to Mexico once to visit my grandmother, that tree was in bloom, and she was telling me how that tree dropped a bunch of seeds, and she only had maybe like 2 or 3 of those seeds, and she gave them to me to bring back. And so from that, I gathered a lot of inspiration, just kind of thinking about like intergenerational relationships, and intergenerational trauma is one of them, but also intergenerational wealth and like abundance. So that's kind of where I drew inspiration for the dining table. And then putting that plastic covering was like very important to me to have on there, because it's like a protective layer. So obviously it's like about protecting my relationships with my family and like what that means to me. But it's also kind of like something that I grew up seeing at my dining table, like that plastic covering, so that so we wouldn't ruin my mom's Montes, so that she could easily clean it off. It just felt like one of those very important details.
And I really like that when we were thinking about the idea of the dining table, we were thinking about us being in conversation with each other.
Yeah.
So you can see where Ale's seat is, where my seat is. And I was also thinking about family and what those relationships mean to me. So one of the pieces that I included was the table runner, and I screen printed that, and the photos on there are photos of my family, specifically in like kitchen areas or sitting on a table.
I noticed that in like family conversations, when we are in the dining room, there's always that point where my family starts to reminisce. So I noticed that during those moments, they start to bring out, you know, like the picture, like the albums with all the pictures, or they start pulling it up on their phone as a way for them to just kind of like recall those memories and just kind of like relive those moments together. And I've noticed that memory is just a very important part of like what I do with a lot of my work. I think my work is in 3 components. I have my political work, which is influenced by our conversations, the current moment, experiences here like that I've had growing up in the Mission and in San Francisco. And then it's also pieces related to like my family. I noticed that it's mainly like the women in my family, so you'll often see like women depicted in some of my work. And then the third one are these series of dichos that I started that are actually dichos that my mom has told me. So I think I'm still playing with that idea of like intergenerational knowledge, intergenerational abundance. So my print about 22nd and Mission is the one that I keep recreating in very different forms. And I think that is where the like middle point between like memory and political work kind of meets for me. With that specific situation, like that building that burned down on 22nd and Mission, I lived maybe 2 or 3 blocks away from that building, and so I watched it burn down from like my apartment window when I was a youth. And I think that moment was very significant for me as an artist and also as just like a young person. When I started working on my print for 22nd and Mission, that's when I really started understanding printmaking as a form of public art, because I was using this print to do little scavenger hunts in the community.
I think that for me, I just view all art as political in general, regardless really of what the intentions were behind it. Some of the issues that I am thinking through is, for me, feminism, but in particular Indigenous feminism, and what it means to be not only an Indigenous woman, but an Indigenous girl. I think about girlhood a lot. Along with Indigenous feminism, I'm thinking about other issues regarding Indigenous identity and existence and land. There's a print in here that's dedicated to my pueblo. There's also a couple prints in here that we both made talking about Palestine, which is also an Indigenous issue. So yeah, I think I always come back to themes of feminism, of indigeneity, of land, of life, of death.
Tell us about the bloody bananas.
That was one of the first prints that I made out of everything here in the show. At the time, I was reading a book about bananeras, which are women who were organizing unions, who worked for banana companies in Central America. And bananas, I think, are just a very political symbol. You know, very bloody history with these banana companies. So that's the idea that I was thinking about, just the violence that has happened because of these corporations. They have a long history of exploitation, of committing genocides. Yeah, I mean, I think also it's interesting because a lot of my work is kind of very bright and colorful. I think when I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of color in here. But a lot of them are dealing with dark issues and dark topics, which
we love a paradox.
Balance.
Yeah, we love duality and complexity. Okay, something that I would also add that we kind of talked about is how chisme is like a rite of passage. Like sometimes, like when you're growing up, you're kind of excluded from these conversations because you're too young. But I know for me, when I was finally able to like sit at the table with my tias and my mom and start getting the family chisme, I knew I was like grown, like I was like able to be there.
At that point, that's just preserving
history. Yeah, no,
tradition.
Yeah, literally it is. And this is what we mean when we're talking about chisme. Like it's not just like chismeando. There's a component to it where it is like building communities, building relationships, building ties, sharing like information to keep each other safe. Like there's a lot of things that go into chisme that have kept a lot of the women in a lot of these spaces just like safe and grounded. And then to add to like the intentionality of the space, I know that we've hidden some little things around the space that are meant to be a little hidden, but also meant to draw people into them. I hid a bunch of little gnomes. Well, not a bunch, there's only 3.
There are also 3 dots somewhere that you can look for.
Yeah, and then there are elements to our installation that are interactive, that we intentionally made
this
to
couch,
be interactive. Yeah, come hang out on the couch. This is a very comfortable couch.
Yeah, we also have games. If you look at the little coffee table in front of you, you will find some games that you are welcome to play with. You can sit on the floor, sit on the carpet.
Yeah. Make yourself cozy.
Yeah, this space is meant to be engaged with. Kind of like when you invite people into your home, you know, you want them to sit on the couch. Please don't be standing there by the door. Like, take a seat.
walk around, really look at the work.
Yeah, welcome to our home.
Welcome to our home.